All right, can you hear me, Zach? Microphone test. Okay, sweet. All right, well, this is recording. Sorry for the little technical difficulties getting it up and running, but we should be good now. I'm going to start using YouTube, I think, on Tuesdays and then maybe even Thursdays as well. We'll see how it goes. The point of this, guys, is so you can watch my screen a little bit clearer. With Canvas, it's a little too slow and stuttery, and you can't really follow my mouse. So I figured I'll just do it like this, and then you guys can watch these videos whenever you get a chance. This is kind of cool going into infinity here. Not as laggy, indeed. I wish that your comments would be saved with the videos, but they're not. And it's not even in the screen I look at. I don't get your comments either. So I have to pop back and forth sometimes. So, but anyways, how were finals? You guys ready for, I guess it's just you ready for this semester? I think some of you already took a look at what we're up to this week. Okay. Well, whatever. I'll just get started before this drives you insane. So this week, take a look at the assignment list, go to week 1. This week we're getting serious. I don't know why it won't let me expand this. In case you guys had trouble getting to this live conference, it should be at the top here. If it's not available exactly at 10, give me like 5-10 minutes to wrestle with YouTube. Let's just go, I guess, through each assignment real quick. We're gonna have, it's gonna be pretty much like this every week, a team project. You'll basically be working on the game to some extent. An individual project, you'll be working on your skills, and a discussion. Generally, you'll be talking to your teammates to work out anything you need to share with each other or any problems you're having, what have you. And a book, just a short reading assignment with a couple, 5 quick notes or a summary. So the first one, the team project. I guess it's probably better to start with the discussion first. I kind of did it backwards. But if you look at the discussion, let me pop this off. Yeah, so there's a Discord chat for every group already. I think Parker set that up. I'll get to that. I didn't see if anybody was on today. It didn't seem like it. But anyway, so here's the discussion. We all voted for the games we wanted to do last semester, and the winner was Elysian Fields. The student that created Elysian Fields doesn't want to be the team lead, so I'm going to do it where we have a producer, which is going to be Hunter, and then we'll have team leads for each specialty team, and I'll show you what I mean. So the first thing you got to do is click here and review the game again. Just make sure you know what it's going to be about. This is our 10-page game design document. We got some cool enemies. You just read it over. It's basically the guy's already dead. He's in limbo. It's like a spooky forest. So we'll have to come up with kind of the concept. People will need to give us more details on the enemies, and we'll kind of have to come up with assets and what kind of items we need to populate this world. So to see what who the team is, just click on the contact list here, and I have you guys broken up into groups. If you don't, here's the game design Discord. If you click here, you can go join our Discord chat. Discord's just kind of like Skype. It's just a way to talk to people. That way we can just stay in touch. And we have our own Discords here, Skypes. I need you to put your email first thing so we can get a hold of each other, because you guys are going to need to be talking to each other pretty often. And you'll need to be talking between teams though too. So this is our 3D art team, mostly responsible for 3D modeling, texturing, and getting the assets into the engine. An asset is basically any 3D model, or really anything, a particle effect, anything you're going to drag into the game engine is an asset. Concept art, pretty self-explanatory. If you're on the concept art team, you guys need to kick it in gear pretty quick, because generally concept art is done before a game is started. So we're just getting started, and we'll just wing it. But preferably get as much concept done as soon as possible. Andrew was the one that came up with the game, but he doesn't want to be in a leadership role. But if you do have questions, maybe he can fill you in on some of his original thoughts. Now it's just a group project. So, but when we do concept, make sure you come up with like a style, a color palette, a look and feel, so that you guys aren't drawing. One person's drawing a realistic demon, and then the next one's drawing like a cartoon, demon, and they don't fit. So we got to have kind of a style sheet, a color sheet, and then start giving me characters, backgrounds, storyboards, etc. Shoot me an email or come to these conferences or chat with me if you need more help. Design team, you guys are going to have to kind of start just probably paper and pencil doing levels until we get more info from the concept team and more assets from the 3D art team. Once you do, then you can start blocking it out in Unreal. Our programmers are going to be pretty important. It's going to determine, what our game can do and what it can't. So the first thing would be for you guys to look through that game design document and try to figure out what's going to need programming, and then how are you going to accomplish that. And then after that, you'll be in touch with the design team, figuring out what kind of functions they need and stuff like that. Audio guys, I would start. Yeah. Well, this is kind of like a small scale production business. So I want you to kind of get a glimpse of how it is to work with other teams and with each other. And you might not like your teammates, but you got to get along and you got to work together, and so on. Don't get stressed about it. It's supposed to be fun, but it's kind of like real world learning type stuff. And you guys are still learning. I'm assuming that, your first assets, your first level might be a throwaway, but at least it's a good way to learn. Audio guys, start researching what tools you want to use to create audio. If you know how to make music, even better, but if not, that's okay too. You can also start looking around the internet for free sound effects and free music tracks and stuff like that. And then I'll show you once you get kind of an archive of the sounds that we're using, I'll show you how to implement them. Unreal has like 3D audio, so if a train goes by or something, you can hear it. If you have even stereo speakers, you can hear it go across, or if there's something behind you, you can hear it behind you. Sweet. Yeah, if you guys can work like across the aisle, different teams if you want to. But I've always kind of neglected audio, which always came back to bite me in the end. So it's good to work on it as we go. And each team is going to have to create a list of all the stuff they need. I'm surprised nobody's here. Hunter will be the one that's in charge of looking at your task list and seeing what your guys' game plan is and making sure that fits with the overall team. QA, William, if you're hearing this video, shoot me an email, because there's nothing to test until, it's probably a year from now. So maybe you want to jump on and help one of the other teams in the meantime, or at least kind of see what maybe 3D art team, because everybody's going to have to do a 3D model this week anyways. So maybe you can help them until we have something to test. And then animation, you'll have to, we're going to need to wait for models to animate. So you might also have to help out with 3D modeling until then. Before you animate, you have to rig. So nobody knows how to rig. That is something, if one of you guys wants to try learning it, that's cool. If not, I can teach Nathan how to do it, or worst case scenario, I can do it. There's also a way to cheat by using the rig from Unreal. Do you know what a rig is, Zach? Am I talking crazy? You do. Okay. So for those of you that don't, this is kind of what a rig looks like, a simple one. It's got basically a skeletal bone system of where your character can bend and move and deform and stuff like that. And then you usually give controls to an animator. So this one's rigged, and then you give the animator little controls that they could move around. And then you basically record those animations and export the animation sequences into Unreal. It's hard, man. If you're interested in learning, it's cool. It's one of those things that I taught myself, but I watched like some tutorial series for like literally like 20 hours, and I basically just learned the basics. So it's rough. I thought I was going to be a rigger for a while. I had a buddy that decided to be one. He ended up rigging some of the stuff on like Transformers, which was gnarly. But just so you know, that's the step we'll need to take before we animate. I'm kind of thinking, there's some free characters you can test with and stuff. I'm better at rigging with Maya. I don't know anything literally about rigging with Blender. So I would have to learn if we're doing Blender. On that note, I have in our game design team, you guys should all have this link. If you don't, I'll post it right here. Oh, it's not going to let me post it. Whatever, it should be in the assignments. This is a game design folder. Each team has its own folders. If you can't access this, let me know. There's also a resource folder. Don't worry about these yet, but the links right here, there are some program downloads. So for this week, you're going to need Blender, which is right here. I personally prefer Maya over anything. The cool thing is, since you guys are students, you can get Maya for free. The only problem is if we ever want to release this game and make money, my Autodesk is gonna come asking for some money too. Blender, it's fine. It doesn't matter. It's 100% free. But if you want to try out Maya or 3D Max, they're both really good. Check these out. They're free. Unreal, if you don't have it, is right here. Sculptris is free. It's kind of cool. I'm gonna use it for texturing in 3D. I'll show you guys how to texture in 3D. It's kind of the little brother of ZBrush, which is the paid, better version of Sculptris. Since we don't have a budget to buy everybody ZBrush, try Sculptris. You can try ZBrush if you can find a trial. It's really cool. And then for textures, we got textures, blueprints. It's generally for like vehicles, weapons, airplanes, stuff like that. And here's some tutorials. So I made some Blender tutorials. Here's a bunch of Unreal tutorials. There's some more Blender. Don't worry about source control yet. I'll get to that later. And then this one has some more Blender stuff. I'll put it in one of the assignments real quick because it's not letting me post links into this thing. Okay, it's at the kind of at the bottom of week 1 team project assignment. And I'll be adding more, it's right here. I'll be adding more links for like any tutorials I find or any tutorials I make. And I'll upload any kind of free assets I can find or textures or anything cool like that. I'll just be popping them all in there. So if you guys have something to share, just share it with me, and then I'll also drop it into that folder. So for now, we're just going to be using Blender just because it's free. If you guys want to do Maya, let me know. I'd be more than happy to. And if it comes down to the point where we're selling this game and they're like, oh, you use Maya, we'll just say we use Blender because we are using Blender. I don't think it'll ever be an issue. If you can get Photoshop, it's better, but GIMP or Pixlr is an alternate. So let me continue. Basically, I need you guys to put your email address in there if you haven't already. This is editable, so don't like go crazy and mess things up. Just edit your own email address. I had your guys' email addresses, but I don't want to share it obviously without your permission. So go ahead and just put your own email next to your name. If your name's not in here, just add it at the bottom down here. And what team you want to be in, your email, and so on. That way we can all stay in touch. You can add your Skype and Discord if you want. You don't have to. It's all optional. But we do need an email because this is going to be a team assignment, and it is part of the standards that you guys work as a team. So you guys will, probably get close. It'd be a little bit different if we were actually together, but you're going to have to talk to people in your group quite often. And once we kind of get to know each other, you can nominate a team lead. If there's multiple people that want to be team leads, we can discuss that too. So for the discussion, just introduce yourself, tell them who you are, why you want to do the job that you're set up to do. Discuss the game design doc, and is there any changes you want to make, any suggestions to improve it. This is really just brainstorming, very beginning of the project. I think, yeah, okay, Parker and Maxwell both want to do it, and they're both, I think, pretty talented. I think Parker might be a little more outgoing. Maxwell might be a little more experienced with programming. So I'll have to talk to them about it. I wouldn't have a problem if they just team up and work like really tightly together. Normally it's like nobody wants to be a lead unless they get extra credit or something, but I can probably shoot some extra credit if you guys do team lead. It's not too much extra work. I just need somebody to be my go-to contact that can deal with the rest of the team. Perfect. So then Parker and or Maxwell can delegate what things you need to program and assist you from there, and I'll just check in with them. So start coming up with a list of what your team needs to accomplish. What is this? Oh, this is actually the folder. If you click here, it'll take you to that game design folder, and then you can just go into your team and add a, yeah, so that's also a big concern, is who has enough time to send emails and stuff like that. So each team needs to set up just a Google Sheet or whatever, just a list of things that need to be done, preferably like in order. So for programming, you know, first step would be, are we doing VR? If so, what is our control scheme going to be like? And then you just need to start doing some testing to make sure that works out. And then from there, we'll add, you know, weapons or pickups, health, stuff like that. So just put that in a list of all your tasks. I only need one per specialty team. And you can put anything else that you want to share with your team up in that, in the folder as well. So that's it for this one. Also reply to each other twice. I don't know if I put that on here. But just as a rule of thumb, when I do discussions, reply to each other twice, or to other people. So this is kind of the same assignment, just getting started. Look at the contact list, create that task list for your team, and then make sure that your team can edit it. Tell me who's going to do which job, and, you know, put like how many weeks do you think this will take? Is there a deadline, stuff like that? So you would make it just a spreadsheet of name, assignment, and deadline, basically. So you can set up a team lead. Basically, all we're doing for this is getting yourself a list of tasks to do and getting ready to rock and talking to your team. Here's your folders for each team. So click your folder and put your task list inside of that folder. And that's it for that assignment. Pretty soon I'll probably switch it over to Asana or some other kind of task management system where it will send you guys tasks and you can just click, I completed it, and so on. But for now, we're just going to do it through Google Docs. And then the book should be pretty easy. Same as last semester. Page 209 through 254, just give me 5 notes or a summary. If you don't have one, let me know. You really should have one by now. It's, you know, second semester. Ugh. Any questions on that before I tackle the last part? It says there's one other person in this video, but okay. Yeah, if you guys ever have questions, just email me. And then the project this week. So I hate to lay it on some of you guys, but I want everybody to know how to 3D model and do an asset. It's actually also part of your standards to get, eventually this course will be college credit, and we're trying to get that situated as soon as possible. But I just want everybody to know how to do an asset so that if you're working with the art team or the programming team, they all know what it takes to put an asset into the engine. And by asset, I'm talking about a 3D model that's textured. But we're going to do something very basic, so don't flip out if you don't think you have any art skills or anything like that. Okay, so the UV unwrapping is the tricky part. Always, and that's what they've been kind of neglecting to teach you for Daybreak Studios or anything like that. Without unwrapping it, your model is useless, completely and utterly useless. And so my best analogy for unwrapping, for those of you that don't know, just so you know, next week we're doing unwrapping. This week we're just doing a basic, super basic model. But those of you that don't know, this will be next week, but unwrapping is basically turning a 3D model into, also known as UV mapping. It's basically turning a 3D model into a 2D plane. So here's an example. Here's a 3D head. You unwrap it into a 2D version that you can then put an image on, which is known as a texture, and then that will get wrapped back around the head. My analogy is usually a bearskin rug. So you take like a 3D bear, and you got to cut them where you have to cut them to get the skin off, and you unfold that into a bearskin rug. Now it's a 2D bear. Or you know, like a cardboard box, you have to cut the cardboard at the edges in order to unfold it into a flat 2D box. So then when you fold the box back up, whatever you printed on it, you know, wraps around. That's my best analogy. So something like this is the simplest it can get, really. It can get more and more complex depending on what you're unwrapping. But I'll cover that next week. It's actually not very bad. I'm used to unwrapping with different programs. I just learned it with Blender, and it's pretty easy, pretty nice, actually. A lot of programs have advantages and disadvantages, but Blender is good with unwrapping. So anyways, this week, I just want you to kind of take a look at that game design document, see if you can come up with an asset that might fit the game. And it's something very simple, though, like literally like a crate or an oil drum or a trash can, or, you know, you can even do like a rock or a brick wall, something that's roughly like cube or cylinder. You can go further advanced if you want, but just so you know the basics of modeling, unwrapping, texturing, and importing, I want you to keep it kind of basic. So some of the basic ideas I thought of were like crates, barrels, bridges, potions, weapons if you want, but they might be a little crazy. Ruins, maybe a gravestone, a lantern, or anything else you might think fits. I have some tutorials here. I'm going to post this conference link here, and feel free to look up any other tutorials on modeling or unwrapping if you need to. This week we're just doing modeling. So you have 3 weeks. I'm going to do 1 week for modeling, 1 week for UV unwrapping, and 1 for texturing and importing. Once you finish your model, submit the 3D model and a rendering or screenshot. If you don't know how to render, then just do a screenshot. Hopefully you guys know how to do screenshots. If you don't know how to do a screenshot, then contact me. Rendering would be up here, but it would look through the camera. So you would have to make sure your object is in front of the camera. You have to mess with lighting a little bit. So if you want, just shoot me a screenshot. On that note, when you open up Blender, you can delete the default light that it comes with, and then it'll be fully lit everywhere. So I'm just going to do the world's, most basic rundown of Blender. And I'm sure you already know the basics, right, Zach? But for those of you that don't, sip some water first. Okay, so this is like your workspace right here. Your tools and create options, and mostly you'll be using the tools, the create, and some of these other options over here. These options relate to whatever object you have selected. So I have this cube selected, so I have all the options for it here. Like rendering options, scene options, world options, yada yada. We'll go into these one at a time when you need them. Textures and materials, but don't worry about it at this point too much. There's also a little pull-out tab here. If you have this little plus line mark, you can click it and pull over, and it gives you basic transform and dimensions and display, some basic options for your item. So when you create something, you want to go in and make sure it's all zeroed out, which basically means that the center of the object was where my little mouse is right there. That is at the middle of the scene. That way when you import it, your object isn't 10 feet off to the side. One thing I have to figure out is scale. We're going to have to figure out what size a person is in Unreal versus Blender. I used to use Maya mostly, so I knew a person was 100 units, but for now, just model it. We can scale it up later. That doesn't matter at all. So to get started, let's see, I can delete this. If you open a new scene, that's what you'll start with, a cube. If you want to create something, you go over here to create. You guys can probably start with a cube or a cylinder if you're doing a trash can or an oil barrel or something like that. Let's try cube. See how it just popped it wherever. I can mess with the settings here, or I can come in to this tab and just type in 0, 0, 0. You can scale it if you want to. That's all here too as well. But let's look at how to maybe turn this into like a crate or something that has inset faces. So to be able to edit this thing, there's object mode, which is you can grab whole objects, and edit mode down here, which allows you to grab parts of the object. You can switch between those two by just pressing tab. It'll show down here object or edit mode. So to edit it, we obviously want to do edit mode. In this case, I want to make some lines to give me somewhere to extrude. Generally, you'll want to do, when you're adding geometry, you want to have it loop all the way around. So I can go into tools, and there's loop, cut, and slide, and offset edge slide. There's a couple of the different tools. I'm going to try loop, cut, and slide. And you can see when I click it and then I hold it, it'll preview, show me what it's going to look like. It's a loop all the way around. If I scroll the middle mouse button, it oh wait, let me back up. I guess I forgot to cover the super basics. To zoom in, you scroll with the middle mouse button. To rotate, you hold the middle mouse button down and then just move your mouse. And to pan the camera, which just means to move it, you hold shift and then click the middle mouse button. So middle mouse button, middle mouse wheel, and shift middle mouse button. So that's how you move around the scene. You could do different perspectives too with sorry, with the numpad. If you just press the different numbers, you can see what I'm talking about. You can do top, bottom, left, right. It'll show you up here. But the most important one is the number 5, which will turn it from a perspective to an orthographic, which just means in perspective, things are as they normally would look. In orthographic, there's no, it doesn't taper off towards the end. So it's easier to select things in a line or something like that because they're not distorted by perspective, if that makes sense. You'll get used to it the more you do it. The shortcuts, if you ever want to know, you click down here on view and it'll show you all the shortcuts for the different cameras, or you can just click, I want the left camera or the right camera. But you'll see, okay, here's one way to look through it. There's this little button right here. Allows you to look through it so you can select all the way through. But you'll see in perspective mode, it's distorted. If I press 5 again and go to orthographic mode, now it's straight on. So it's easier to select things that are, you know, in line. On that note, in order to select things, you have 3 options. You can select by the vertex, the edge, or the face. Vertex is one of these points right here. And in Blender, basically to select anything, you right click. Left click just gives you this 3D cursor. I'll explain more about that, I guess, probably next week. It's a little more advanced. So it's right click to choose your vertex, and then left click to manipulate it. An edge is, if you click here, it's an edge. Basically is a line between 2 vertices, and you can manipulate that. If you want to select faces, faces are right here, which a face is a whole, usually squares. We call them quads. You want to keep pretty much you want to keep all of your geometry in 4-sided polygons. That's because the game engine will then later go and cut it in the middle and triangulate it, and that's what the game engine wants. You can get away with, not necessarily doing that every time, but it's a good rule of thumb. 4-sided polys. I'll turn that off so I don't have to look at it. If you want to select multiple of anything, in this case, multiple faces, you right-click one and then hold Shift. You click another, and now I have multiple selected. You can also hold Alt, and it'll do a loop. Let me give you a better example here. So I could click here if I want. If I hold Alt and I click, it'll loop it all the way around. Makes it way easier to select a whole ring and do clean editing. So Alt does loops. Shift will just add, so you can just randomly add multiple ones. And a cool trick I found out yesterday, really, if you click one and then you hold Control and you click somewhere else, it'll find the shortest path. So it's kind of useful on more complex shapes if you don't want to sit there and like hold Shift and click all of them. Also, if you hold Shift, and it's already selected, it'll remove. It adds or removes depending on if it's already selected. But if you hold Control, it'll just figure out the path for you, which I thought was kind of nice. Oh, it's all good. Just going over basic modeling stuff. But that's a good trick if you guys didn't know that. Right click and then Control will give you the shortest route. There's some more. Let's see, what's another? Okay, so to select things, let's say I go to my front view by pressing 1. You can see how it's warped by perspective. If I press 5, now it's not. It's orthographic. Let's say I want to select. You can click this button to make it so you can select all the way through. Say I want to select, like this middle square on both sides. There's a couple shortcuts, A, B, and C. They're very easy to remember. A is for all, so it'll select all. Useful all the time. It'll also deselect all. So you'll be using A a lot. B will give you a box select. So it's good for things like if I want to go and, chop off half of it. I can use the box select. It's just B. So A is all, B is box, C is circle. And for this one, you just, it's kind of strange. You use your middle mouse button to make the circle bigger or smaller. And then you just click and drag. You can also hold Shift and click and drag, and it'll remove that stuff. So A, B, C, those are your, press Enter if you need to get out of it sometimes. But those are your selection tools, your quick select tools. I will show you one more trick real quick before I start chopping up some models. Let's say I want to, instead of, okay, if I'm sitting here and I want to like pull these out, it's very sharp and drastic, and it's going to be hard to, if I want to make it smooth, to kind of pull these a little bit and then pull these a little bit. That's going to be too hard. So what I would do is, say I select this one, you can do something called proportional editing. It's this little circle right here. Looks like a little button. You click that and just go to enabled. And now when you are moving something, this, you see that white circle around everything? That is my like area of influence. So the smaller it is, the more it just affects what I have selected. The bigger I make it bigger by using the mouse wheel. So the more I increase it, the more it'll affect the surrounding geometry. So you can get a nice soft kind of shape. This is how you do, this is basically how you start doing, excuse me, how you do like organic shapes. It's almost impossible to do it just by moving vertices around. You'll need to use proportional editing to get softer shapes for like humans or what have you. So you just, when you move it, as long as you have it enabled, that circle will show up, and then you can choose how you want to do it. Another trick is, if I'm moving something, proportional editing or not, you can lock it to a certain axis. You guys know your axes, right? They're right here. X is red, which goes that way. Y is the green one. And Z is up and down, which is blue. So if I grab, if I grab this and I want to only move it on the Z axis, I can press the letter Z, and now I can only move it up and down. If I want to do it on the X, I press X, and now it's only X. Y would only go on the Y axis. You can also hold Shift and press like Z, for example, and now I can do both of these axes, but I can't go on the third axis. Does that make sense? Well, let me know if you get lost, or hopefully somebody will be watching this later too. Okay, so that's kind of the basics of how to modify stuff. I can tab back to object mode, and then I can just press delete and get rid of that. I got a monkey here. So if I wanted to make his head like bigger at the top, I could use proportional editing. Increase it so it makes sense, as opposed to just like that, you know? Now let me show you how to do a couple techniques to create shapes. A lot of times you'll just be starting with a cube. Zero it out first usually is a good habit to get into. All right. So a lot of people just start with a cube. You can go in, let me, I guess, demo this real quick. If you wanted to model something more advanced, like if you guys are doing 3D art, I recommend you eventually get to some more advanced stuff like cars or people or whatever. But if you want blueprints of certain things, you can go into the blueprints.com. Say we'll do a weapon to start with. And I don't really care what. This shows you the size of the drawing. I'll just do a Beretta. Okay, so if you have a picture that you wanted to load up, this is just icing on the cake. I'll show you, but basically, if you want to load up images, this is what we'll do for characters and anything that really needs to be done properly. You'll load up an image behind it and then on the sides, so it makes your life easier. In this case, I'll just add a background image. It's in this little pull-out tab. You just click open image and then and then you can see it'll show up there. When you move your camera, it won't show up. Only if you're in whatever viewport you told it to be. So I have this one under all views, but you can have it set as left only, so that when I'm in view left, that I'll only see it on the left. And then you can do a different one for the front, back, top, bottom, what have you. If you look at blueprints.com, whoops, it'll tell you which ones they have. So if you wanted to do a nice something or other, you would do front, top, right, and side. This way you could get a full 3D guide that you can just basically follow. So you would just upload it the same. You'd upload a front, top, right, and side. And to add more, you would just click add here and then just tell it which axis you want it on. So this is one way to model. Just basically kind of start tracing things. Oh, another shortcut is, oops. So S is scale. And let's see, S is scale. R is rotate. And oops, I forgot what move was. I just move it usually. Oops, it just got rid of my image. Well, at any rate, you saw how to add an image. Doesn't really matter. So click this to make sure that it's like see-through and you can edit all the way through. And then you'll want to probably grab some vertices. You can use B for box and just select those. Pull it up so that it matches. And you can start from there, and then you can just basically start extruding things. So if you select a face and you click tools over here, you click extrude. That'll let you pull things out further. So you can match that up wherever you need to, and then just keep kind of going at it like that. That's for something a little more advanced. For something basic like this week, let me just start over. Oops. Say we're doing a crate or something. Huh, it's not. Sometimes you need to zero it out down here. I'm used to Maya more than this, so I got to figure out a couple of things, but zero it out down here if you can. So if we want to like add a crate, we can do, we can either inset each face or we can make add some more lines to it. I'll show you both ways. So if you select a face, you go to Tools, Inset, and then you move your mouse, it'll inset it for you. Right here, the tool will tell you what you can click this manually and drag it. Say you like 0.2. That way you'll know you can just duplicate it on all of them. So you just press Inset Faces, and then 0.2. Inset Faces. 2. Because you want things to be exact. You don't want to just kind of wing it. Okay, so that'll give us the structure for a crate. And you see they're all still four-sided polys. 1, 2, 3, 4. The only thing you need to watch out for is make sure they're not like inverted or backwards polys. I need to turn off this. Just make sure they don't overlap or go like backwards or look really wonky. So now we could do something like, there's multiple ways of doing this. This is just one way. You can extrude it in, actually. And again, you can get the number here. Say you want like it's negative 0.3. It's going to be this different on the other sides. That's actually too much, I think. So negative point, let's do 0.1. You can try doing it as like as all of them at the same time, but sometimes it doesn't work with Blender that well. Making sure they're all the same like depth. So now I got, more or less a box. And like that's as far as you guys really need to go this week. And then we'll unwrap this thing next week. You don't have to do a crate, obviously. You can do something a little more interesting. I got to figure out how to reset. I used to remember. Let me see. Okay, that's what you want to do. If you find that your center point isn't in the center, you can go to Object, Transform, and then do Origin to Geometry. The origin is basically going to be where it can, where the middle is, so where it would rotate from if it were on an axis. And what this would mean is we want to set the origin as the middle of the geometry. You can also set it as the 3D cursor, which is wherever this thing is. I'll get more into that later. Or you could set it as the center of mass, which would be, it's pretty similar to geometry. It just has to do with how much empty space is inside of the object. So just stick with that for now, and then you can zero everything out up here. Then you're in the middle. I guess I can show real quick if you want to see unwrapping, or that's going to be next week, really. So pretty basic, right? But something I do want everybody to know. What do you guys think? Pick anything up from that, or? Lost you guys? It's all good. This is recorded, so if anybody needs to watch it again, I'll post it in a second. Got it? Makes sense? So start with something like that. Look for references if you want. If you want to do like a potion bottle or something else. If you're doing something like this, try to use the proportional editing and the loop selects. So for example, so this is when you switch to object mode. If you have multiple objects, you get rid of that one, and I can add a UV sphere or whatever. And then if I wanted to make it more like a bottle, I can press S for scale, Z for the Z axis, so it only scales in the Z axis, and kind of elongate the thing. You're actually probably better off starting with a cylinder. So I would just go in and add loop cut and slide, add like a bunch of them. Oh, another thing, when you're creating, let's say you're creating a cylinder, down here it'll tell you how many vertices. So if you go less, it'll be less geometry. You go more, it'll be more. We want to balance it so the game doesn't crash, but it doesn't look like garbage. So, I mean, you guys have seen games. They're kind of low poly, depending on the game. That might be fine. And then you just go in, because anytime you add more cuts, the more vertices you start with, it just exponentially gets crazy. So if you do like a loop cut and slide on here, you can add a little bit more. And then if you wanted to select, like, hold Alt, you can get a whole loop. You can turn on proportional editing, press S for scale, and then scale it. It's kind of touchy. You know, depending on my proportional editing, will change the shape. But you can do something like that. You know, just play around with that kind of set up and you'll get it. The top is kind of an issue because this one, you know, has way more than 4 polygons. You can always just get rid of it and select the loop and then kind of extrude it in by pressing S for scale. That'll give you 4-sided polys everywhere. You could even extrude it down then if you wanted to make like, give it volume, like give it an interior. Or you could press there's a cap button somewhere, I forget it. Oh, not a blender. Whatever, there's fill and bridge functions. I'll get to that stuff later. Oh, Alt F does it. Oops. You press Alt F, it'll do it, and it'll make it 4-sided, but it's not going to be pretty. So it's your call. You can leave it as a basic cylinder too. I won't. You can leave it like that. You can always use the knife tool to cut across if you need to. K is the shortcut. Oh, if you wanted to do that. Basically just do some kind of basic asset that we're going to unwrap next week. You can also, if you want to like model things as 2 pieces, that's fine too. Like I could eventually just combine these and they can share a texture page if I wanted to. Doesn't have to be one continuous 3D model. Like if you're doing armor, that can be a separate piece or whatever. But yeah, can't get much easier. A crate, cylinder, trash can, whatever. Try to fit it to the world if possible. I'll talk to the 3D art guys and the concept guys and see what our style is going to be. So next week we unwrap, and then after that we have to figure out what kind of textures we're using. Probably images, so you won't even have to paint them. You'll just steal images. And then unwrapping is easy. I guess I'll save it for next week because I've been talking for too long already. So that's it and then once you got it, like I said, just send me the file. You just file save. It'll save it as a .blend. Just give me that file and then give me either a render, which won't work if you don't have any lights, or just a screenshot. Fair enough. Any questions? You guys are good? Basically, get something simple done and ready. It could be more advanced than that if you think you know how to do it already. And then have that ready for next week and we'll unwrap it. And if you want, I might even just unwrap one of the ones you guys submit. So any questions on like anything this week at all? take that as a no. Okay. You guys ready to rock and roll and try to make a game? All right, well, that's it then. Go team. Yeah, if you guys come up with a team name, let me know. We can do a poll on the ones I've got so far if you want, but nothing really completely stood out to me. Oh, they're all in that contact list, actually. The suggestions right here. If there's one you specifically like, let me know. We got to get a team name quick. Exactly. All right, well, that'll be I'll put that on my to-do list as we need a team name ASAP. So if there's anything you guys like here, let me know. But other than that, you're free to go. I'll talk to you. I'll have a conference Thursday. I don't know if I'll be doing a YouTube or not, but I'll just be here at least in case you want help or whatever. And email me if you need anything else. New discussion. What do you mean? Oh yeah. Yeah, I'll include that. I'll just include it next week. I'll come up with another poll based on what you guys have already come up with, and then I'll have an other section for any more ideas we have, or just a straight up discussion, and you guys can talk it through. But like I said, there's going to be a discussion every week, and it's going to be like a team discussion. So that hopefully this class will be a little bit more interactive and social. But on that note, no bullying, no homicidal, suicidal, no foul language, no bullying on any of this team's chat stuff we're doing. Sure, it's pretty much assumed, but I just had to say that. All right, so you guys are good? I'll be here Thursday, same time. If you need any help or want to work on anything, I'll be here. Same old conference. We'll keep it reasonable. You know, some people are sensitive, so. At least on our main chat. If you guys want to do your own little side chats, that's fine. Cool. Oh, and one more note, I guess, before we leave. I'm bringing computers now everywhere I can. There's one in Santa Ana. So if you need to do work that you don't have a computer for at home, you'll be able to go to your local Springs. Next week, I'm going to drop one off in Riverside. The Corona campus is giving me a hard time, so I don't know about that one. But the Temecula one will get a computer. And if you're at Hemet, talk to the people there because we need to find somewhere to put a computer there too. So if you absolutely can't do your homework, you need to email me. But I'm going to have computers everywhere, so you won't have that excuse. And that's it. All right. Well, I will. Oh, I kill it from in here. All right, guys. Well, that's all I got. I'll talk to you Tuesday. Email me if you need anything else. All right. Later.